Maybe you actually need this extra rest. Maybe that is actually the miracle that you need in your life right now, is that you have been running this race so hard for years, and now you just need to give yourself permission and the gift to just rest. Welcome to the Conscious Investor. Let's get started. Welcome back, Conscious Investors. I'm going to touch on a very sensitive subject, and I don't mean any disrespect ever to anybody, but today's title actually has a lot of relevance. And we're titling this episode Post-Pandemic Miserable Miracle Morning. You see, I've been working with lots of clients in the coaching space, and I'm noticing that there is a theme, and I've created a theory. If you have anybody else in the world that you've heard discussing this, please send information my direction. I'm very curious. But I have this theory. Let me see if this resonates at all with you. When we entered into this whole pandemic state across the globe, it was super duper intense. Okay, that is a solid 2.5 years ago. And most of us, I think most of you who are listening, we share something in common. We leveraged that as a powerful opportunity and we hustled. I remember looking back on that time, I remember very deliberately, and I just spoke about this on Rod Cleef's podcast about creating an accountability group and just really diving in deep to ensure that I wasn't going to get taken out, in a sense, by the pandemic, but that I was going to really leverage and utilize that as an opportunity to move forward with everything I was already working on. But, there was extra time. I know that sounds crazy to think there was extra time, but now that things are, opened back up, and it really feels like, wow, we really did have the gift of time. And so just diving in full speed, there was so much hustle, and there was like so much ground that was covered for many of us where our investments really, they went full cycle, or, we got into many investments and we just were able to make so many gains and strides that we otherwise probably wouldn't have made. Realistically, when we look back at the pandemic, we might look back on the pandemic in a similar way to the Great Recession, where so many people made huge gains financially during the Great Recession because they were able to just pick up houses and ride the appreciation and sell them. In a similar way, the pandemic allowed us to experience that as individuals. So if we took the time and we invested in ourselves, we ourselves actually appreciated over time. And now we have so much to show for it. I mean, this podcast is proof of concept, right? It launched on March 2nd, 2020, just before the shutdown, before it was a big thing. But I've stuck with it. I've been consistent every single week for all this period of time, 300 episodes later. And we've also, through this period of time, we really honed habits. We read books. We dove into personal development. We, read Atomic Habits, and we were habit stacking, and we read Miracle Morning. And it's like, okay, we've got this down. We're going to wake up and this is what we do. And we read Brendon Burchard's High Performance Habits, and all of these books, all of these things are actually books that I truly love and practices that I implement. But I'm noticing something taking place. I'm noticing that some of us are feeling a little bit less motivated. Not that we don't want all the things that we were striving for, but we've gained all that ground and we're tired. We have been hustling and going and so disciplined and so diligent and so good to our habits. Now there is this different fatigue that has set in. For some people, I notice there's less inspiration and just an overall fatigue. And that's what I want to talk with you about. And I want to share a few analogies. You know that I'm like always good for analogies. And by the way, if you are watching this on YouTube, you're going to notice that I positioned even the monitor, like my camera, in a different way, because I feel like this is such a different way of, I would like this whole episode is about looking at things in a very different way from a new perspective. Here's my theory of what happened and is taking place for many of us. We were going and we have these visions and we know where we're headed. But for some reason, we keep comparing ourselves to back then. Now, think about this. Let me give you a couple of practical ways of thinking about this. Many of you have kids in your life, your own nieces, nephews, friends, kids, right? And one of our friends, actually, a lot of our friends have little babies. We're out of the baby world. But if I think about to when my kids were babies, and now I have man-child, right? 13, tallest member of the family. I can't compare my 13-year-old to baby. He's not a baby anymore. And I think many of us were in these middle years of life where they feel very similar year to year. Are, a little more wrinkles, whatever, but maybe some gray hairs, whatever. But we feel pretty much the same. And we're not noticing these differences in who we are becoming. I'm going to stay with me on this. I want to give you another analogy that may even resonate further. iPhones today are vastly different than the original iPhone. There is no button. Good golly, we can't even plug our headphones into our new phones. We have to have the Bluetooth things, and and the charger, we can't use the same charger on a few different generations. And the phone cases won't fit on the new iPhones as the old iPhones. I think a lot of us are really trying to fit our new self into our old self. We're trying to take all of this growth and if you think of a balloon blowing up, and we're trying to take that, we're trying to stuff it into something, and it's not going to fit. And it's a good thing it's not going to fit. We've been growing. We've been transforming. But it's important for us to consciously stop and recognize and acknowledge, wait a second, why am I not feeling this congruency in my life? Am I trying to look at things through the old lens of myself? Am I trying to squish back into my genes from when I was 5 years old? It's not going to fit, and it's not going to be comfortable. And when we experience that, our motivation can diminish. It can totally tank because things aren't aligning. And we're trying to align with something from the past that isn't at all who we are and who we are becoming. So on this note, I really want to encourage you to take time to consider if you are doing this, if you're experiencing all of these frustrations. I'm going to be completely transparent. I know that's such a shocker for everyone who's been listening for a while. I know you're like, Julie, no, really? You're going to be transparent? Yeah. I've been experiencing this, and I think it's interesting that I've been experiencing it and I'm starting to see it taking place. And it's not that I'm looking for it specifically. It's just that once you identify something, you can recognize it more readily as it presents itself. And so in this regard, I will let you know how I've been experiencing this. And that is, over the last 3 months, I haven't been as motivated. And at some point, a few months ago, I literally gave myself permission to be okay with maybe don't do the miracle morning stuff, Jules. Maybe you actually need this extra rest. Maybe that is actually the miracle that you need in your life right now, is that you have been running this race so hard for years, and now you just need to give yourself permission and the gift to just rest. We allow this in other ways, other parts of our life, but especially high performers. We want so much and we're so ambitious. And we think that being productive is always taking massive action, literal action, physically, mentally, that you can see. And we forget that we can be taking massive action by sleeping in and giving ourselves that rest and reprieve. College professors, missionaries, they go on sabbatical. They take a rest. They actually step away from their ministry or from their teaching in order to step back and gain perspective. Sometimes it's, I just want to hunker down and learn more about this one topic so I can, become a better expert on it. Or for missionaries, a lot of times it's, let me just come. I've been giving, and now I just need to be nurtured. When is the last time you nurtured yourself? I've been learning how to do that. The first way I was nurturing myself was by giving myself that permission. And in giving myself that permission, it was a bigger permission than I anticipated. We're really multifaceted people. And again, if we think about who we were, you don't even have to look at other kids. If you think about who you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you're not the same person, and your perspective has shifted dramatically. We approach things in a new way. And it's interesting if we can give ourselves a little margin in life, some permission to just rest, we can start to actually just start seeing other parts of ourselves. Case in point, which is very much a practical way of putting this, is when God moved my family to far north Idaho, I learned that I had this small town girl inside of me. I'd grown up in the suburbs. I had my babies in Denver, in a big city. And now I live in this little small town, and I'm experiencing the world in a completely different way. When we give ourselves that permission to rest, we also invite that opportunity to see ourselves in a new way and to see the world in a new way. These are both such critical things in order to, just be powerhouse contributors in the world and to be strong family members and friends and such, right? So as you're doing this, as you're giving yourself that permission to rest, remember that, I guess that's one of the things. I wanted to give you 3 things. Sorry, I should have told you that. I'm going to give you 3 ways, 3 benefits of this, or three forward moving strategies that are actually very, very passive and nurturing. So one of those, I wrote down some notes because I didn't want to forget them, but one of them actually doesn't make sense. Maybe I've been resting a little too much. All right. But okay, so permission to explore those other parts of who we are, the other dimensions. And here's something that I've been reminding myself. Trust myself. I am not a complacent person, and you're not either. You're an action taker. You're a go-getter. You're ambitious. And just because you are maybe kicking back, relaxing, maybe like me, you're not hitting the gym hard. Maybe you're not even hitting the gym at all. And that's not normal for you. And part of you can be doing that whole freak out. I did that. And then I thought, wait a second, I have a whole lifetime ahead of me. Maybe my body is just, let me listen to my body. And I'm going to trust all of my past. Remember that we look for evidence in our life. All the past evidence shows, well, I still wear clothes from 20 years ago. Okay, the past evidence shows that I do take care of myself, that I am going to be healthy, and that I'm not, I'm going to continue to be healthy. it's okay for me to take this. I can trust myself taking this break because I can see the past evidence. You will get going again. You won't be complacent. And as the final and third part to this, and as you're taking this time, this is your opportunity to acclimate. Life is a journey. So let's think, and I've spoken about this before, but let's think about Mount Everest. And if you were hiking, if you were climbing, if you were the adventurer that is going to the top of Everest, you don't just go to Everest in a day. So that represents our lifetime, our lifelong journey. We're not going to get to the top. It's going to take a lifetime. And along the way, that came out funny, didn't it? It sounded a little British there for a moment. Now I'm sounding a little Irish. This is great. But along the way, I hope you laugh at yourself. Don't take yourself too seriously. A lot of times, little sidebar here, when people go onto podcasts or, they're going to speak to people, they get really nervous. And it's like, what if I say, guess what? We all say silly things. We all come across different ways and we don't have to take ourselves too seriously. We can enjoy ourselves and say, oh, I wouldn't be unkind to a friend. Why would I be unkind to myself? So let's go back to Everest. As they're ascending Everest, there are all the different base camps along the way. And those base camps are there for adventurers to acclimate. They have to learn to catch their breath. And they have to, their heart has to acclimate and their lungs have to acclimate in order to continue the adventure. This little period of rest, I'm not as motivated. I don't have the inspiration I had. I'm really not sure. I know my vision. I know where I want to go. I know I want to get to the summit. But dang, it's kind of like when I was hiking the 14er, right? With my good friend, Monica. And I was at that higher elevation and I could feel it on my lungs and on my heart, right? Sometimes it's time to just acclimate. Let yourself just get used to an area. And for the last few years, more than likely, you've been internalizing that message, like never get comfortable. When you get comfortable, you're going to get complacent. But there's a difference between getting comfortable and acclimating. Getting comfortable is a mindset that says, I'm just going to get comfortable because I really just want to stay here forever. Acclimating says, I'm going to get used to this here because in order for me to go there, I have to gain the strength that I need. I have to tend to my body along this journey. I don't know if that makes so much sense to you. I think it's going to resonate with a lot of you. I think a lot of us have just been on this hustle high from the last, maybe I should title the episode Hustle High, right? Maybe most of us have been on this hustle high and we just need to stop and acclimate and give ourselves permission that no, we're not a loser. We're not going to fall behind. We're still going in the right direction, but we can enjoy the journey too. And we can be kind to ourselves. All right. Make sure you rate and review this episode. Share this episode if this makes sense to you. Share it with someone that you think is going to benefit from this or find it interesting. Remember, things should expand our thoughts. So leave an honest rating and review down below because that helps people find the podcast and hopefully inspires them to live a more conscientious life because we're investing. Yes, I love investing in apartment complexes. Love it. And I love helping my passive investors, just have strong returns and everything. But I also love investing in people and I love investing in myself, right? We've got to be conscientious about investing in every capacity. All right. You guys are absolutely amazing. Until next time, live big, love bigger. Are you enjoying this episode? Where would your life be without content like this? Help spread the word by sharing on your social platforms. And please tag me, Happy Julie Holly.